Hi, I'm Spiro with SP Wood Art, and thank you for joining me today. And if you're one of my scraps, I wanted to also thank my subscribers for all the wonderful, really kind words lately. I really appreciate it. So, thank you guys. So this week I'd like to show you one way that I use little tiny scraps in my shop. Mostly from leftover pen blanks. So I hope that you stick around and enjoy the show. Thank you. Here is my box of tiny cutoffs from pen blanks that I keep. And to make a holiday Christmas bulb, I'm going to want to choose a color that's holiday-ish, either a red or a green or something that's going to, add the holiday spirit. And I think I'm going to go with an acrylic because I just don't feel like dyeing any wood today, and I don't feel like applying a CA glue finish. You can use a wood if you'd like, but I'm going to go with this green and purple sparkly blank. I chose to use my chuck, and I'm just going to stick the blank in there and tighten it down. You can turn between centers or various other ways of mounting your blank. If you're going to mount your blank and it's acrylic like this, just make sure that it's pretty secure in your chuck and that you don't tighten it down too much, because the plastic can blow up depending on your resin. I'll start by roughing out this little piece round using my square radius carbide cutter. I can move the tool side to side and get some nice ribbons. The one issue I always have with turning acrylics is the ribbons wrap around the piece and I find it difficult to see exactly what I'm cutting. Now I'm going to use my round carbide cutter to shape the profile of the bulb. And I have noticed that my carbide cutter is getting a little dull, so I probably need to change it out. It's not cutting as fast as it should. Also, I'd like to note, when the carbide cutters get dull, I'll find myself wanting to push the tool to get it to cut, and you really don't want to do that, because with the acrylic you could blow up the blank. The tool and the cutter, the carbide cutter, should really just be cutting. You shouldn't have to force the tool into it all. So I really need to turn the blade or change it out with a new one. In addition, I'd like to note that this is the first carbide cutter tip on this tool since I've made this tool 4 months ago, and I have done numerous projects with very, very hard materials with this tool, and this is pretty much the first time I'll probably change it out or turn it. So these cutters last a very long time, especially with not having to sharpen in 4 months. It was really, really nice. Now I'm going to use my 1/8 inch parting tool to separate out the bottom of the bulb from the rest of the blank. Then I'll switch over to a 1/2 inch skew to get into those tight places and to make a nice smooth finish. In addition, I'd like to note, for safety, since this is such a small piece and you're working so close to the chuck jaws, if you're turning it this way, make sure that you keep your tool away from the chuck jaws and that your knuckles and fingers are away from the chuck jaws as well, to avoid any painful situations. Oh, you also want to take very light cuts too when you're cutting acrylic to minimize chipping. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before. Now, once I know that the little bulb is secure and is not going to just break right off at the little tenon that's keeping it on the rest of the pen blank, I'm just going to take my skew and finish trying to clean up as much as I can on both of the ends. Just make sure that you don't push too hard, because you can just break that little bulb piece right off. Then I'll progress on to sanding, and I'm going to start with a 150 grit and work my way up to 400. And I'm using Abernet sanding sheets, and I am wet sanding. Then I will move on to the entire series of micro mesh pads, and I'll also be wet sanding with those as well. Then I'll just dry it off with the lathe off. Safety tip there. And then I will use a plastic polish. And I am positive that this plastic polish grit is less than the 12,000 micro mesh finishing pad that I had, but I use this polish all the time, and I like how the finish comes out after using the micro mesh pads. Oh, and in case you want to know, it's one step PSI polish. Then you can just take a paper towel and turn up the lathe speed to at least about 2500 and burnish the polish. And I'm using a paper towel. Sometimes I use a cotton buffing wheel, but I'm using the paper towel because I'm so close to the chuck jaws. I just don't want to take the chance of maybe that catching on the chuck. Next, I'll just take my 1/8 inch parting tool, and with the lathe at my slowest speed, I'm going to just part off the bulb as close as I can to the rest of that pen blank material. Then I can save the other piece for another day and just add that to my scrap box. And finally, I'll just add some adornment to the light bulb, or Christmas bulb, holiday bulb, and I'll also add a little eye hook on the top so you can put a necklace through it. And I'm just using a thick viscosity CA glue, so it gives me a little bit of time to work with the pieces before the glue dries. You can make a little gold screw top to make it look like it was a bulb that can screw in. I didn't do that, but the idea is there, and hopefully it'll give you some inspiration to maybe use up some of the scraps in your shop. Thanks.